EdtechMondays Uganda is supported by the Mastercard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in partnership with the Innovation Village. Welcome to this season's premiere of EdtechMondays with epic conversations on how technology can be integrated in the education system to address the existing challenges in the education system that we currently have here in Uganda. EdtechMondays Uganda is supported by the Mastercard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in partnership with the Innovation Village. The center launched EdtechMondays as a platform to facilitate critical conversations on the use of technology for teaching and learning by bringing together key stakeholders that include policymakers, edtech entrepreneurs, teachers, and also the parents. I am Sandra Kahomza Twinoglu, and I'm excited to host this edition. And this month we speak investments. We're now looking at Africa's population that is set to double by 2050 and over half under the age of 25, according to the United Nations. The urgency to revolutionize education has never been more critical. In Uganda, EdTech is rapidly expanding through innovative solutions from social enterprises and NGOs, with growing government interest in fostering an ICT literate workforce, from online learning platforms empowering learners with flexible education options to, of course, investments in infrastructure and also connectivity. Uganda's edutech sector is at the forefront of driving digital literacy and overall literacy. But today we ask, what factors are actually driving this growth and innovation in Uganda's edtech sector? So joining me is a great panel of speakers. Simon Kawesi on my far left is the founder of the Student Hub that personalizes career guidance for students using technology. Thank you so much, Simon. We're excited to have you on the panel today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. We also have Faith Kisa, who's the founder of Poni, and an educare company that publishes children's storybooks, designs characters and environments for games, and does 2D animation. Thank you, Faith, for joining us today. And finally, our last panel speaker is Jacob Mwesigwa, who's the founder of Wale Visual, that creates practical skilling modules using virtual reality and augmented reality for students. So welcome to our panel speakers. We are delighted and actually looking forward to hearing from your expertise in the edtech sector. But I want to quickly start with Simon. You are doing amazing. Over 5,000 students benefit from your program at the Student Hub. Paint for us a picture of how that actually looks like.
Perfect. Thank you, Sandra. One thing that we need to know is that we have so many students in our respective schools that are being taught different subjects, physics, math, chemistry, but sometimes they lack that connection to how this is career relevant to them. So at the Student Hub, we build web technologies that help students make that very, very important connection that if I'm studying mathematics, I'm studying physics, it can lead me to engineering. And this is what I can do, or the different versions of engineering. So what we have done is to connect what they're learning in class, the respective subjects, and the different programs they can actually be able to do at the different levels of education. So if they want to go to vocational, there's a route for them through a same platform. If they want to go to the university, there's a route for them. But also help them understand how these different programs branch out into the different career paths. Because we believe that a student who never dream of a career path, they never know exists. So we have also designed tools for schools to manage the career guidance process, because you realize that in a typical school, there's one careers teacher with about 1,000 students. So what are the chances that this student will have a session with a careers master? And through these web technologies and the search engine optimization that we've actually been able to do, the students are able to access our content. So if a student just typed in how to become, let's say, an electrician in Uganda, there are high chances that they'll land on our portal, and then we'll take them through the journey. Let's say if they got onto our portal from the career inspirational angle, we're able to share with them the different education options, how much it's going to cost them, where they can actually be able to study this particular course, but ultimately also who has done this and what do they have to say about it. So we've integrated with other different people who have shared a lot of content with us, people in the film industry, and this content has proved very relevant to some of these kids, because some of them may never get a chance to meet a news anchor. before they, get to university. But because of technology, this is possible for them.
So basically, you create a safe platform for them to seek out who they actually want to be.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And now, Kisa, you are doing something that is creating content for our little babies. What is that key factor that drove you to start Poni?
When I was growing up, I really wanted to see localized content being animated and stuff. So by the age of 10, I had figured out how to use animation. I would design my own characters and I would make them move, and I would share it with my little cousin who stayed with us, and she really liked it. So I was using very unconventional animation software like Microsoft Word and PowerPoint to design cartoon characters and actually animate them. So it came from a very young age, and I saw the effect of, designing these characters, how it also made me feel like, I have a sense of belonging. And that's what really inspired me to pursue that later on when I was at the university. Actually, even before university, I knew that that's what I wanted to do.
Did you sort of sit back and say, there is a gap that I'm seeing in the education system that needs to be filled up?
Yes.
And it started from you?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So Jacob, Wale Visuals, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Yes.
Very interesting that you're doing what you're currently doing. And I'm just curious to hear from your perspective. Paint for us a picture of what Wale Visuals is actually all about. Some of the terms that you use when you're throwing them here and there, you're literally confusing us and you're throwing us on the side. What does it really mean? What does Wale Visuals really do?
Yes, so at Wale, we understand that we are trying to skill the future work of Uganda and Africa. So in our current schools right now, majority of the education that we give our children is actually more theoretical. You go to a class and they're trying to study about, let's say, an experiment in physics, and it's just a textbook. So at Wale, we translate all the education from theory to practical analysis and simulations using virtual reality. And it's a thing that we're doing currently in over 7 technical training institutions in our pilot project, in which we are trying to really bridge the gap between the skills that are needed by the everyday worker and how they're able to achieve them. Yeah.
And I actually just want to stay with you because, it's very easy for us to speak about technology, especially if you're talking about the high-end people,
Yes,
people that can afford phones, people that can afford, to get a tablet. Let's speak along the lines of EdTech for the low-income learners, people that can barely even afford a phone. How do they tap into these wonderful opportunities that you are actually presenting to us today? I want to start with you, Jacob.
We try to port all our education simulations to a smartphone, so that even the person who is in Karamoja has access to it with or without internet, and they can learn in a gamified environment that helps them actually achieve the skills that they need.
Great. I definitely, in the future, we do hope that we can now look at, okay, if you can't afford a smartphone, for example, how does that get to that? And I think this is a conversation that we'll have to drive at some point. Now, over to you, Faith. How are you contributing to EdTech in terms of targeting the low-income earners? For example, the low-income mother in the market who has a baby and really wishes to tap into that animation that you do. How do you navigate that? So
there are different channels, that we've been using to reach people who don't have maybe as much technology or, so we do storybooks and games. Our games are both digital, but they're also hard copy, So we can do we do the animated story, but it also has a book version. But in the future, we also want to build community like development centers, so students can come and access these materials, right? Even if they don't have it back home, there's a center and a space where they can come and actually, engage with the materials. So that's in the plan.
Great. Over to you, Simon. As the Student Hub, how are you, for example, targeting the low-income earners or people that may not necessarily get on the phone and say, on the smartphone, and actually say, I want to be a doctor. How do I become a doctor? How are you navigating that?
That's a very interesting question. Thank you so much for that question. Yes, of course, we are cognizant about such a kind of group of people who have aspirations but may not have access to technology. But of course, I'm encouraged by the current statistics that about 59% of Ugandans have some access to internet. However, we've also tried to reach out to partners of goodwill so that we set up career inspection centers whereby these people, let's say, can go to a place where they can find this technology much cheaper. But also we have some offline versions. So when you go up country where there is no internet, we have our chats still where we can do basic psychometrics, basically to assess their abilities, interests, and how their personality aligns with their career aspirations. And then we leave them with hard copy content. Of course, the dream is to have a USSD version. So it's something in the pipeline such that someone can maybe just type a short code, put in their grades, and they get all the information they need. So it's surely in the pipeline.
Well, honestly, if we are to look at the current environment we're working in, we can't look at today without looking at the past, you know. Looking at the COVID-19 period itself, it taught us that we needed technology more than ever. And I think it's truly the way to go. But I just want to pick your thoughts on how generally your different audiences are embracing EdTech from wherever you come from. I want to start with you, Faith. Okay. How are people embracing EdTech? Do they appreciate it?
Yes, I think people actually appreciate it because I remember when I started this journey of building Poni Educare, I wanted to start with some sort of streaming platform that, you know, produces alternative learning materials for children, edutainment style, yeah, but obviously I learned so quickly, like the funding landscape is so, you know, biased towards MVPs and having some traction. But at that point, I didn't know how to get there because I just started out as in university, so out of university. So I was like, okay, maybe I can start producing like books. But so when I started producing books, I got like, I have books on Amazon, they're digital, and I also have hard copies, right? But people felt like, okay, but it would be really nice if we had a place where we could go and get this content and it's, you know, digital content and it's animated and stuff like that. Of course, the person who's telling you these suggestions, you already had them in plan, but you know how capital intensive it is to get to that point. So a lot of people seem to be more interested in that type of product because also when products are digital, they're usually cheaper. Yeah.
Great. Over to you, Simon. What is the general impression that you get from your audiences in terms of how they're embracing technology in education?
So usually when people are interacting with us, they say, I got it online.
Don't we all?
Yes. And usually some of them are not very curious to know what source. So for me, that really gives me a bit of encouragement that they are looking, their first point of reference is online. So usually, depending on how you've done your search engine optimization, someone just types in anything, the how-tos are always the go-to for many people, you know. So from the feedback we are getting is that they have realized that there are so many answers online.
Simon, we'll just cut you short there and we'll take a short break and we'll return with more conversations on the same investment in EdTech. But do remember to be part of this conversation by using the hashtag EdtechMondays on our social media platforms. EdtechMondays Uganda is supported by the MasterCard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning. Welcome back. Glad to know that you're still watching EdTech Mondays. Well, before we went in for the short break, we were talking about the way Ugandans are actually embracing EdTech. And I just wanted us to quickly talk about investments because I understand from every single thing that you're doing, there's a little gap that still needs to be fixed, which is capital, which is investment. And I want to start with you, Faith. What are some of the policy considerations that we have or that should be put in place to ensure that we attract more investors to invest in EdTech?
I think it's more of local investors. We need more local capital because you see, most of the funding we're getting is from, let's say, Kenyan VCs, South African VCs. Obviously, they are going to prioritize their locals before they give you money.
Over to you, Jacob. I know this is an area that you're so passionate about and you have your issues with it, but How do we attract more investors in EdTech, and how do we ensure that they collaborate better with the education institutions or the government agencies to ensure that education is improved or is bettered in a way?
Yes, my go-to strategy, honestly, is increasing the amount of people who have interest in it. We need to be more intentional about what the direction we want to go with our education. The internet is so important in this day and age that if we do not have access to the internet, you're almost cutting yourself off from a global village. So we need to have better infrastructure in terms of maybe internet, because the high costs of internet in Uganda are really alarming, and we need to enable the everyday user have internet access. And so that goes down to the policies that government is trying to make. And I know they're really passionate about it. The Innovation Hub in Akawa and the Innovation Village are doing their best to implement, to help government know that these strategies that you're implementing in the Data Protection Act are affecting this type of user, and we need to improve them if we need this user to have access to this platform, and also enable the innovator themselves have access to a whole larger community of what?
Let's now hear from you, Simon. In what ways do you think partnerships between the EdTech entrepreneurs like yourselves can work together with investors alongside government agencies to ensure improvements in the education sector?
One of the things I can think about is school directors and school owners coming on board to support EdTech startups, you know. And some of the ways they can support is allowing them to pilot in their schools and creating an enabling environment for them to pilot some of these solutions. Because the thing with education is there has to be empirical evidence that it works, you know. And how they know it works is what is a child scoring at the end of the exam
after using this
technology. So it's one of the delicate balance that we have to strike.
Yeah.
You know, so them coming on board, understanding that most of these edutech solutions are adding to the qualitative development of these learners. You know, they may not, some of them are qualitative and others are quantitative, but the quality of a learner, you know, that they're able to understand how to explore the world using virtual reality, you know, to build up their minds, you know. So it may not immediately show up in the grade at the end of the term, but has a lifelong value in this learner. You know, so calling on the school owners to come on board, embrace some of these edtech solutions, have them implemented in their schools, support the program, you know, and other ways as well. We have people of goodwill who can zero-rate some of these solutions on the different telecom networks, you know, that for accessing a solution for this period of time because it's of career value or educational value, is free of charge. Or I mean, we've seen some of the solutions that have been zero-rated and you are thinking, so how is it of educational value, you know? But some of these solutions, the solutions are zero-rated so that many people who have challenges with data can actually be able to access some of these solutions. So, and also when it comes to policy, one of the things I was asking Faith here, that do we have an EdTech department at Ministry of Education? You know, which is basically there to conduct research, to ask who is in the field, who is doing what, you know, so that we can come together and synergize. Because at the end of the day, it is a win for the nation.
True.
You know, that we're all pulling our resources together. You know, the government has created an enabling environment, you know. The guns were silenced, we have power most of the times, you know. So the remaining part is honesty for the young men and women to rise up to the development of their country by giving them the necessary support they need.
Interesting. Now that we've touched the local bit of things, let's look at the international side of things. What role do you see international players or organizations, do you see that they can actually play in ensuring the sustainability of EdTech ecosystem in Uganda? I want to stay with you, Simon.
Yes, of course, we have international bodies like UNESCO that have a vested interest in education. We have the likes of UNDP, who are very influential when it comes to policies in the respective governments, you know, around Africa and world over. So them coming on board as well to embrace some of these initiatives, you know, and because at the end of the day, a small innovator may be hard for them to influence government policy, you know, but when the likes of UNESCO, when the likes of, you know, UNDP or the people who are propagating, you know, SDGs, you know, because most of the edtechs, of course, are advancing SDG number 4, quality education, you know, so them coming on board and, you know, getting to support these innovators, you know, to amplify their voices, in my view, will take this entire initiative where really ahead.
Jacob, What are your thoughts on that? What role do you see international bodies playing in the growth and even the sustainability of the EdTech ecosystem in Uganda?
Well, and from a personal basis, I see them doing their best.
Are they already doing their best?
Yes.
Already?
So recently we launched the Digital Transformation Roadmap with the UNDP at Serena last year. And in this, they're really basing out a report that says that these are the things that we need to digitize in education. And these are the strategies that anyone who is interested can take up. So they are really doing some really good work, and just to improve it, would say that we need them to now help understand that we not only do we need this infrastructure, but we also want localized content, because it is not useful for us to bring all of this technology and then we give our schools the technological shock. And so it's a gradual thing that I think they should take, and then it takes on a mature direction from that.
For an investor, for example, who's looking to invest in, say, the School Hub or Poni or Wale Visuals, it's very important, they always say you have to benchmark, before you invest or create anything.
Yes.
What are some of the emerging global technologies that you're seeing, or emerging trends that you as EdTech entrepreneurs can look out for, or investors should actually look out for if they want to invest in Uganda? Compare and contrast. Over to you, Simon.
Well, in our particular space, there are some very interesting technologies that are in other countries. One of the technologies I can talk about is Zello. Zello does something similar to what we do. It's as from Canada. Basically, it's a tool that helps young men and women figure out what next after high school. And it's been built to a level whereby, even when I want to do a job after high school, those opportunities are actually there. It has components of, skilling this individual, to simple things like communication skills. Before they leave high school, they have already sorted those. They don't have to get to university and they are subjected to communication skills lecture, So, and all these technologies have been very successful, but they have equally been funded, So they are able to easily get into schools, they're able to, deploy the solution. The local authorities have given it a green light. So my thinking is that with this kind of evidence, the local investors can have a bit of more faith in the fact that these technologies actually work and they deliver the much needed value.
Jacob, what are some of the global, trends that you're seeing that investors can actually, use, or to benchmark and say, okay, if I'm investing in Uganda, I've seen it work in Kenya, I've seen it work in Zimbabwe, then it will definitely work in Uganda?
I would say technology is really important, and if we understand its usefulness, not only in its form, but it's in its goal, then we can have the basis of all knowledge. So the technologies that do arriving is immersive media, just like how we are using it, virtual reality, and then there's the rise of artificial intelligence. And so if we look not just in the short term and look in the long term, if we begin investing early in, let's say, in the artificial intelligence systems of Uganda for education, where learners can interact with these systems and they can be getting personalized trainings. But then also I would say that we need to build more faith in Ugandan developers, because a lot of young developers are out there in their bedrooms or garages doing amazing stuff, and these investors might have the money that can take this to the next step, but these young innovators actually have the building.
Now, that exact point brings me to yet another interesting question. How do we create the balance between financial returns and social impact, creating the impact?
Yes.
Because here you are looking to improve the education system in Uganda, but the aspect of you want to get more money. How do you balance that as an investor? If you were to speak to an investor on the sideline, how do you create the balance between them?
I would find it difficult because investors look at the numbers. That being the business side of things, we cannot ignore it. Something needs to be sustainable for it to be funded even more. We need it to be a natural growth, not a unadvertised growth, because advertised growth will go up like high, like on an all-give graph, and then slope down into the dustbin. And we don't want that. We need it to be a smooth ride, and then you're also enabling the monetary terms of things. So bridging those items, that's how I think it should be done.
Let us now talk about the investment opportunities that, for example, the hub has, benefited from, and or Poni or Wally Visuals, that someone out there, a startup, would like to dive into. What are the available opportunities currently?
Well, for our case, many EdTech startups require access to servers.
Yes.
It's quite a cost. We're a bit lucky to get some server credits that can help you run your solution for about a year. Wow. So being able to benefit from that, and we're able to have our solution run for a year without paying. So that's one of the opportunities. And many other service providers offer this opportunity as well.
Great. Faith, what are some of the opportunities that you've been able to exploit that another startup out there can actually exploit as well?
So for me, I got my first investment from the Tony Elemelo Foundation, and I think it's a good one for people starting out because it has such a broad number of entrepreneurs that they fund compared to the rest. The ticket size is not as much, it's $5,000, but it helps you get started. So I would advise any entrepreneur to kind of follow all these different entrepreneur blog posts, post about opportunities that are coming. Yeah, so that's what I would advise them to do.
Jacob.
Yes.
There is a startup out there that is looking to do what you're doing and even make it better, Unfortunately, that's how the world rolls.
Yes, yes.
What are the available opportunities that you think they can tap into?
Yes. So there are very many. There's the YALI Young Entrepreneurs Program, where they really focus on skilling up individuals, training them, and even going ahead as far as investing in their startups. Platforms are really many. We cannot exhaust them all, but I can say utilize the internet to the point that you can find almost any type of funding.
Basically, EdTech entrepreneurs in this country should dare to seek the information because it's really just out there. That has been it on EdTech Mondays, but again, it's very important for us to hear from you, and would like to just promote the hashtag on social media, EdTech Mondays. You can send in your comments, you can send in your thoughts, and let us know about, let us know what you think or what you make of the investment environment in the EdTech ecosystem in Uganda. Would like to hear from you. Do you think, for example, technology is the way to go? It is here to stay, but how do we use it for the benefit of the education system right here in Uganda to better the future of a wonderful young people that we have in the next couple of years? I've been your host, Sandra Kahomza Twinovideo. EdTech Mondays Uganda is supported by the MasterCard Foundation Center for Innovation.